right, thanks for dropping by the garage today to talk about the Volkswagen Super Beetle. So, the Super Beetle was kind of a misunderstood machine. It doesn't really get the attention it deserves today in the collector car market, but I think that might turn around into the future. It's a great car. They started production in 1971, and it was really Volkswagen's answer to the import crisis that they were facing with the onslaught of competition coming from Japan. So they were trying to make the car a little bit larger and more user friendly to increase the size of the front trunk, or the frunk as we like to say, and also to give it a better ride that would be more in comparison to the competition in small cars at the time. I mean, Volkswagen back then was still using the torsion bar front suspension, coupled with a ball joint front suspension steering components. So it was getting a little long in the tooth. So they had to do something in order to give it a better ride to equal the Japanese competition. So at the time, McPherson struts were the big innovation in the automotive world, and they wanted to incorporate a McPherson strut type design in the new Super Beetle car. So the car itself was a lot wider in the front trunk section. So if you look at where the doors, the split line between the doors and the front bodywork, of course that's exactly the same cross section as the old Beetle. But as the fenders move forward, and like the fenders being the part of the car that include the gas cap door, if you look at that section, it's a lot wider than a regular Beetle, and it also had to be wider in order to incorporate the front McPherson strut assemblies, where the top of the strut bolted into the bodywork of the car like a modern McPherson strut suspension. So they needed to increase the width there in order to include the front strut assemblies, which were a lot bigger than the shocks that they used in previous model years. They also moved the gas tank closer to the driver's compartment, so taking it away from the front impact area to make the car a bit more safer. So now the gas tank was up higher towards the rear of the front trunk rather than being down low and in the front of the car, which is where it was in the earlier Beetle. This made the car a lot safer in a front end collision, keeping the fuel further back in the crush zones of the car, so that it wouldn't ignite so easily as the early models could, with the tank being closer to the front of the car. This design gave a lot more usable trunk space in front of the gas tank and down low, because now the spare tire was mounted flat underneath the luggage space in the front. So it gave you a nice big flat wide trunk that was easy to reach. The 71 and 72, so the first model year being 71 for the Super Beetle, and the 72 included the front windscreen that was basically from the regular Beetle. This is what a lot of collectors call the flat windshield Super Beetles, but they weren't really a flat windshield. They did have a little bit of curvature to them. I mean, if you go back deeper in VW Beetle history, there was an actual flat windshield car way back in history that was completely flat, but then they actually put a little bit of curvature in the windshields, and then those are the type of windshields that most of the Beetles in the 70s had, and in the 60s had as well. So it was a carryover of the slightly curved windshield, I guess, to say it correctly. And then they came out with a very curved windshield design that was more like Porsche-like in the 1973 model year. For 1972, they also increased the size of the rear window. They call it a bubble window at the back of the car. So it actually, I think the increase in size was because they moved the windshield or the rear window higher up into the roof line to give you more rearward visibility. So it's considered the bubble rear window. In 1974, the Beetle came out with a new front and rear bumper design that included absorbing shocks that were incorporated in the front and rear bumper that would meet the new North American standard for high impact resistance, 5 mile per hour impact resistance laws that were in effect for 1974. So the bumpers are bigger than they were in 73 and a lot heavier. Some of the smaller changes for 1971 included the new flow-through ventilation system. So you'll see at the back of the rear glass the small black plastic vents that were incorporated with chrome trim around them. 1972 saw additional engine air inlet vents on the engine cover, as well as a new steering wheel, a safer steering wheel with a collapsible hub, and also stock controls for turning on and off the windshield wipers and etc. on the stocks instead of with switches on the dashboard. 1973 included the new front windshield that we talked about, as well as the elephant foot rear taillights, the much larger rear taillight assemblies, as well as inertial reel seat belts, and a completely redesigned dashboard with center-mounted speedometer that was also combined with the other instruments for one single dial appearance in the center of the dashboard. In 1974, the Super Beetles received a new front-end geometry that was counter-steering to give you more sure-footed traction and steering on road surfaces with less friction, or when one wheel would skid, would keep the car on the center line. So this suspension is more desirable if you're building a Super Beetle. If you're changing the front strut assemblies, the newer struts on the 74 that we're talking about are basically the same type of design that's used on the VW Rabbit in later years, and also the Porsche 924 type front suspension. You can tell them apart because if you look at the bottom of the strut assembly, has 3 bolts attaching the lower part of the strut to the spindle assembly. And then on the later models, there's only 2 bolts, but they're higher up. It's like they wrap around the bottom of the strut and squeeze it together. So the other huge difference, of course, is the 74 to 1980 utilizes rack and pinion steering rather than the old steering used from the very beginning of Beetle production. Super Beetles were available until 1980 in sedan and convertible form. The convertible is made by Karmann in Germany. I think by 1980 it was only the convertibles that would meet the front end collision requirements, so they only built a few convertibles for 1980, and that was it. All Super Beetles use the more powerful 60 horsepower dual port engine. Topic for an upcoming video. Please leave us a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.